Hello, hello, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and we are back with another prep update. It has been a month since I have dropped a prep update for you, so it is time for you to hear all the nitty-gritty craziness that has happened in the last 4 weeks. Whew, I got a lot to share. What is up, Erin? I see you on. Ladies, if you are on, please let me know if you're on live by commenting in the comments in the live chat as well. Anybody who's on live with me tonight, please feel free to ask any questions about prep, about what's been going on. Feel free to interrupt me or anything else you want to know. We can chat about anything. So we'll make this a fun interactive chat as much as possible as well. Hello, Michelle. Glad to have you on with us tonight. Cool beans. So let's see. Let's get right into it. Let's dive in. So first things first, 3 weeks, y'all. 3 weeks, about 3.5 right now, because it's Monday. Thursday is the day, Thursday, October 9th. I believe that's correct. Is the day of the Angel Competition Bikinis fashion show at the Olympia in Vegas. Everything is confirmed. We have our Airbnb retreat house for the week. We have everything booked for the fashion show itself, hair and makeup. I got the tan kit, so I'll be doing my own tan. Now that I think about it, I have to make sure. Oh, I did get it, because fun, exciting news I'll start with before I dive into all the nitty gritty. My bikini arrived this week. So I'm not going to show it here yet. You'll have to wait for the official bikini reveal. But my new custom bikini from Angel arrived, along with, this time, I will have some wings and a glove that they made for me for a little extra embellishment. This particular show at the Olympia, this fashion show, is Angel themed, so I wanted to have some wings this time around. Also, Coach Mary Grace, my assistant coach, will also be walking in the show, as well as one of our ladies, Kristen, will be with us on stage for the first time. And Mary Grace is putting together all of her accessories right now. Kristen's putting together hers. So much fun. I cannot wait to share all the pictures of all of us from this experience. We have 5 of us will be on the retreat in Vegas all together in the house. So I'm super geeked about that. And now we're making all the final plans for photo shoots and all of that good stuff. So I fly out the day before, Wednesday the 8th. So that is exactly 3 weeks from this Wednesday. So 3 weeks plus 2 days. So then I have made a decision. I mentioned last month that I may not do the FMG Vegas show in November, which would require, obviously, me flying back out to Vegas. I live on the East Coast, so that's, quite an expense. Obviously, all of the expenses that come with competing can really add up. I can spend up to easily $5,000 on one show between everything. So I really have to be very, very strategic and cautious about choosing the shows that I do, how frequently I compete. And this year, because everything had been so slow, so I do have great updates about progress coming. But things had been so slow with this cut that 10 weeks in, I hadn't really dropped anything, so any weight. So I was just thinking about the timeline of everything, and I thought it may not make sense to fly back out to Vegas only, I think it was 5 weeks after the fashion show, to get on stage competitively. For the fashion show, I do not have to be stage lean, and I love that about this event. In fact, we have ladies of all shapes and sizes that participate in the fashion show. Some have never competed before and never will. Others have, but are in their off season and are feeling and looking fluffy, but celebrating that stage of their season as well. And others are competitive and actually competing in the Olympia and will also be in the fashion show. So we have people at all different levels of leanness. I I will share my progress update in a bit, but basically I am very close to where I was for the Arnold fashion show back at the beginning of March, end of February, where I was actually in a reverse diet at that time coming out of my prep. And so I had come up to about the weight that I'm about at in my cut. So by the time we get to the show in 3 weeks, I expect to be where I was for the Arnold or a little bit leaner, which is going to feel really good, feel really comfortable for the fashion show. But I will have a hill to climb to get to a competitive level of leanness for a competition. And at this point in time, it wouldn't make sense to get on stage only 5 weeks later. I'm not going to be able to, in a healthy way, get as lean as I need to be competitive. So I've decided to take that one off the calendar and not plan on competing in Vegas in November, and then put all the chips on Mexico in December, which is the last show of the year for FMG. I think there may be one. Last year there was a Dubai show after Mexico, but I think this year Mexico is the last show of the year for my federation. So that will be my one and only competitive appearance on stage this year. And I'm going to put all the chips down on that and plan on that. So I am now 11 weeks out to Mexico. I started my prep 11 weeks ago. So we're in halftime. We are officially at that halfway point. And it's interesting. I mean, I've had this experience before with preps where it takes me a little while before my head really gets in the game and I'm wanting to push and truly feel like an athlete. And so I would say I'm there now. It took a lot longer this year. And if you watched my last update, you heard about some of the health stuff I had going on with recurrent illnesses like viral infections and things of that nature. That stuff has continued. August was a mess in terms of just continuing to have this recurrent, I don't even know what it is. I still don't have answers on what it is, but I had the best week of training last week, felt amazing and recovered well with adding in more cardio and more cardio intensity and still being able to recover and feel good and get back in the gym and feel strong and hit some PRs. So, and my symptoms have dramatically decreased. So I think I am finally, knock on wood, coming out of that. And so I think I'm just kind of in this rev up stage where it's like, all right, all gas, no brakes, let's go, let's do this. So it's going to be tight to be ready for Mexico for the conditioning that I want to bring to that show, but I feel ready to hit the gas and really give it all I've got now. So what up, Emily? Emily jumped on. Mary Grace is here. What up, what up? All right, let's dive into some updates. Let's see, let me pull this window out so I can share my screen, and I will share the fun progress updates first. Okay, so the cool thing is, all right, I've got some data here. I will keep those notes handy too. Let's pull this up so you guys can see that. Is that it? Share screen? Share screen. Progress tracker. Another cool thing I can share is some of the new data that I have added to my tracker spreadsheet. Geeky, geeky, geeky. Hey, Pam. What up, Pam? She's here. Woo, woo. All right. So let's dive in and show you. So this last week was my 11th week in prep. So this week I'm technically entering 2 days into week 12. But here we are, week 11. Erin's here for the geeky spreadsheets. Yes, indeed. All right, so here's last week when things finally started moving, and you may see why, because I added this two new columns here. I added back, I think I went back. Yeah, I went back a few weeks so I could look at some numbers. All right, so here's week 11. I added an estimated caloric expenditure because I found that in my Apple Fitness app. So my Apple Fitness app shows move calories, exercise calories, stand calories, and steps and distance. So what I noticed was the move, it shows at the bottom total for the day. So let's just go to yesterday, for example. It'll show 1772. Oh, this is the new week. So yesterday was 1772. And then obviously I'm tracking my macros. So I'm looking at calories in, calories out. Y'all know I'm not a huge fan of the Seco thing, but for the purposes of really trying to get even closer, and I'm not placing bets, I wouldn't put my money on these numbers being perfectly accurate, but just to get an idea of what it's saying my expenditure is versus what it's saying my intake is, I thought, let's see if based on my wearables, I've actually been in a deficit or not. And there's some interesting stuff here. So as you can see for yesterday, if it's accurate or in the ballpark, I expended about 1,800 calories. I ate about 1,400. So I had about a 350 calorie deficit yesterday. Over last week, look at this. Every day hitting a deficit of minimum 270 up to 750 calories based on intake versus output. Intake here, output here. And then here's my deficit. So on average last week, I had a 440 calorie deficit, which all traditional trainers are going to tell you, you need a 500 calorie deficit to lose a pound of body fat, right? It's not that simple, but check this out. So, and then it also, this is my BMR based on what, oops, I went all the way back up to the top. Good times. Let's find, oh, there we are. Okay. So this is just what InBody estimates my basal metabolic rate to be. I find that it trends very closely with your lean mass or your skeletal muscle mass based on InBody. Tends to be very close to trending with those numbers. So for instance, look at the 13th, it was 1297 versus the rest of the week was in the 13s. And look at most of the week, it was 54, 53, 55 pounds of skeletal muscle mass, and then dropped to 53.1. And then the BMR also dropped. So I noticed that it tends to show skeletal muscle mass and and BMR very similar. So it must be using some sort of formula or algorithm to determine that. Hey, Becky. Hey, Stephanie. Woo, woo. Love this crew here tonight. Okay. So, but the exciting thing for me is that weeks and weeks sitting between 119, like the high 119s, so low 120s to 121 pounds, I finally got my drop that I was looking for, and it came at the very end of the week, 117.9. We just skipped the 118s entirely. And then you'll see quite a bit of fluctuation on the body fat percentage here. And then you'll see the corresponding body fat mass and lean mass numbers going up and down throughout the week. This is why I always tell y'all not to stress over the day-to-day numbers. This is all fluid balance, inflammation, timing of meals, sleep, so many other factors. And I'm not concerned about what the day-to-day numbers look like. But we look at the averages, right? So my average for last week ended up at 119.5 and body fat percentage 18.9. And this came down from where we had been sitting, 120, 19%, 120, 19%, basically 120, basically 20%, 121, 19.5%, 121, 20%. So I've been sitting at this like 120, 121. The first few weeks I did drop more body fat, and this is where I was getting some recomp, but we didn't see overall weight loss on the scale. Then we finally got a little bit of weight loss on the scale, 1 pound, getting in the 119s and the 120s. But the cool thing, and this is one of my favorite things about this spreadsheet that I added, was these lines here that show the week over week changes. So it compares 1 week, the week prior to the current week on average, where we saw, okay, on average, I had half a pound of body fat, a body weight down, about half a pound of body fat down. It's also showing a little bit of lean mass down. But from baseline is what I really like, because then week over week, you can look back to baseline and say, okay, where am I at compared to baseline? Overall body weight loss, only 1.5 pounds from baseline. But skeletal muscle mass up almost 2 pounds, lean body mass up almost 3 pounds, body fat mass down about 4.5 pounds, 4.3 pounds, body fat percentage down 3.3%. That's what I like to see. That all looks amazing to me. So if you even get into this week so far, because I continued to drop, so we got the 117.9, 117.3. This is the first time, second time I've seen it come down to 17.6% body fat. I also like to encourage you all, when you're frustrated by fluctuations in a week where you might get a new low and then it comes back up. Look what happened today. It came back up to 118.8 and 18% body fat. So I didn't get all excited saying, oh, now I expect it to stay at 117 point something and 17% because I saw it one time. I get excited by a new low, knowing that that is a new low. It may go back up, but the new low still means something. I don't expect it to stay there, because that's just not how the process works. We're going to continue to have fluctuations. So still, these numbers are both lower than what most of my days had been looking like. So these are all staying lower than my old previous low, which was 119.1. So that tells me things are going well, right? Also, notice that, so I showed you the deficit, right? Beautiful deficit that whole entire week. In the previous week, deficit that entire week. Every single day there was a deficit. This was close. This one day was almost at maintenance, September 1st. Got a very small deficit, but 2 whole weeks, ladies. 2 whole weeks in a deficit. I didn't jump ship. Look what I did. My macros were the same. My macros stayed the same for 2 weeks. 135, 25, 90 for 1450 calories. 135, 25, 90 for 1450 calories. I did not jump ship. I did not fast. I did not throw something new at it, try something crazy. I kept the macros the same and I continued the same deficit. And it took 2 weeks, 14 days for me to hit the new low. I tell you all the time, the drop is coming. Stay consistent. It usually takes a good 10 to 14 days when we first go into a deeper deficit or establish a deficit for it to actually do its job. So that was 2 weeks at those macros. The week prior to that, my macros were higher. My calories were higher. Look at the expenditure compared to the calories. 150 calorie deficit on average. Ladies, that's nothing. That's maintenance. 150 calorie deficit, it ain't doing nothing. And that's why I got some recomp here. That was great for recomp because it was still in that kind of maintenance range. It was very, very minimal, slight deficit. And as you can see here, some days there were deficit days. Some days we were in a surplus. Some days maintenance. And this pink, this means it was my cycle. So we also had that happening, right? That's going to also play into it a bit. I usually see some days of higher muscle mass showing, higher lean mass showing, and that's usually from water retention. And look at that. It was the first couple of days of the cycle. That was the first time I actually saw 17.9%. But I knew that time it was a fluke because look at this. My weight was up, back up to my high. So I knew that that was all water fluctuations from my cycle. And then it found its way back down again to my regular numbers. So all that to say, though, looking a little bit closer, I realized, look at how I was much less consistent day to day this week. My averages out, I believe, came in a little bit over my goals. Yeah, so I had protein set at 125, carbs 25, 100 fat. So I actually went 200 calories over on average, and it was mainly from this one day where I overate. I don't remember what I ate that day, but second day of my cycle, I was probably hungry, and it was a leg day. So yeah, your girl ate. So we ate back some of that deficit there, and we ended up bumping everything up for the week and killing that deficit. This is how easy it is to overeat one day and then negate your deficit for the week. So something to consider. Now, the previous week, my macros were even higher. They were set higher. Calories came in about the same, but they were higher fat, lower protein. So as I was shifting from higher fat and lower protein to higher protein and lower fat, we found my sweet spot, which I must say from past experience, I can confirm my personal sweet spot where I really start losing body fat, more so than recomp, but it starts to trump the gain in mass so that I actually see a drop on the scale. For me, my fats have to get under 100. It's not going to happen for me with my fats above 100. And that is, I could look, and there are multiple other sheets here. So I have my 2024 sheet, 2022, 2023. Those are totally out of order, but every single prep, every single time, it's usually 90 grams of fat or lower with protein around my body weight or higher, in which case right now it is about 15 grams above my body weight. That's where the magic starts to happen. So we are in that zone. Another big thing I changed this week was cardio. My cardio had been inconsistent week to week. And this is why we look at everything. And this is also what impacts that estimated expenditure. Not just how many minutes of cardio we're doing and how much and what our step count is, but the intensity. I had been taking daily walks, outdoor walks, even beginning of this week. Outdoor walks, some treadmill, but most of the treadmill work was like warm-ups, 10, 15 minutes before my workout, very light. All of this was light treadmill warm-ups or outdoor walks. My outdoor walks tend to not be very intense. I'm sauntering. I'm taking a look at things. It is not intense cardio by any means. And it's not something like a treadmill or an elliptical or any kind of cardio machine where you can keep the pace throughout, or you can choose a program so that it runs a program for you and it kind of sets your pace for you. So it keeps you at a certain intensity. Outdoor walks, I might consciously increase the intensity for a bit, but then it'll drop back down again. It's not consistent, right? And I actually started to pay attention to that on my recent cardio outside, looking at my heart rate and how low it gets when I'm not intentionally keeping that intensity up. So that is something I did this week. And look, because of the sickness and the sick days that I had and days that I had to take extra rest, my step count was really inconsistent and my amount of cardio each week was inconsistent. This was rest and sick all week, right? And the week before that, I had a higher step count. So what happens is you're moving more, You might adjust your macros down, but if you have something that impacts your intensity or your duration of your training or your cardio or your activity in general, now you may have negated that deficit. You may have established a deficit one week and then you may negate it the next week. So these are all things, and this is why I like to look at all of the data. Because when you see the numbers don't lie. We can try to lie to ourselves and we get emotional about stuff, but the numbers don't lie and the numbers don't get emotional. They are what they are. So the big thing that I believe really made the difference this week, and I posted it in my Instagram stories, because every single prep, like I said, my sweet spot is always 90 grams of fat or lower. And my sweet spot is always more intense cardio or more duration of cardio or more frequency of cardio. Bronson said this to me the other day, you always avoid cardio. You always neglect it. You always procrastinate on it. And then eventually when you do it, everything starts moving. Why do you always do that? And I'm like, creature of habit. This is the limbic brain I always tell you all about. It wants to keep us comfortable because it perceives it as safe. So whatever we've been doing, we want to continue doing. So this is why I tell you not to beat yourself up about habit change. Naturally, we're not going to want to just do something difficult, new, different than what we've been doing. And so I always do, confession time, I always do avoid that cardio until the last freaking minute. So part of why I wanted to have this fashion show on the calendar well ahead of my competitions was so that I didn't push all this stuff off even more and then get down to 6 or 8 weeks out of competition and have to kill myself. I'm not trying to do all that. So knowing that the fashion show is, when I got to like 5 weeks out was when I said, okay, we've really got to dial some things in. That's when the macros got dialed in. 4 weeks out, that's when the cardio really started popping off. So this week this was the week this week, I stepped up the step count. Look at the step count the last 3 days of this week. And the cardio, 45 minutes to an hour. And it was elliptical and treadmill lists. Treadmill walk, treadmill lists. That was low intensity, steady state. This was elliptical, and this was the outdoor walk where I was paying more attention, trying to get the intensity up. But look at this. I'll show you the difference. So these two, even the day before, very similar step count, similar amount of cardio, but look what happened with the intensity. Granted, I also had a training day on that day too, so I had some intensity with that. But even with, so this day where I just did the cardio without training, I had an 1826 expenditure. This day when I had cardio and training, only 100, 150 calories more of expenditure because that cardio was not as intense as the day before. This is where we have to get very structured in what we're doing when we are athletes prepping for competition, because any shift, lower intensity, less time, less frequency, little things can add up. So now I have to be dialed with the intensity, with the duration, and with the frequency of my cardio. 2 days in was when I finally got that first drop. I got that first drop on this day. 2 days of consistent cardio. And I did get a little drop the first day after 1 day of cardio. And then after 3 days, I got another drop. And now let's talk about electrolytes and how that can shift things. My weight was up about 1.5 pounds from yesterday to today. Let's see why that might be, because I still had a really nice deficit here. But let's come on over here. One of these things is not like the other. My sodium was over 10,000 milligrams yesterday. Inadvertently, I oversalted 2 of my meals, and I had a 3rd packet of electrolytes in my regular size jug instead of just 2. So also I shifted away. I took out one of my favorite electrolytes that has lower sodium and higher potassium. So I swapped it out for the higher sodium, lower potassium ones. And then I did an extra packet of that. So instead of 7,000 to 8,000 milligrams of sodium most days this previous week, it jumped up significantly yesterday. So that, and I also ate dinner a little bit later than usual yesterday, last night, and I did not do my cardio after my last meal. So the first 2 days of cardio, the first 3 days of cardio, I did my cardio after my last meal of the night. Yesterday, I chatted with my mom on the phone while I walked outside, and I did that before dinner. So then I had a later dinner, and I did not move my body after dinner, and I had more sodium, and then boom, we're up 1.5 pounds. So I'm expecting tomorrow to be down again on the scale because I dialed back the sodium. I will be eating a little bit late again tonight, but I'm doing my cardio post meal before bed, which I like to do because it helps me digest. Last night, I definitely had some indigestion, some gas, bloating. It was very uncomfortable. Also, one last thing, while my carbs were the same for the last few days, within a gram or two, yesterday I added carrots to my dinner. And I don't usually do like a somewhat starchier carb with my dinner. Usually my last meal of the day is basically just protein and fat. So not only did I have the more sodium and I didn't walk after my last meal, but I also had carbs in the last meal. So I think all of that impacted the weight on the scale today. So really interesting, good things to think about there so that you don't get in your head about the scale bumping back up. But overall, look at where we are as of the first 2 days of this week. This is so exciting. Week over week, we are already 1.5 pounds down. a percent of body fat down. Muscle mass is actually trending up a tiny bit. Body fat mass down about 1.5 pounds. Lean body mass holding on. And then from baseline, I'm finally down on the scale overall 3 pounds. Almost 4.5% body fat, 2 pounds of skeletal muscle up, body fat mass down almost 6 pounds from baseline, and lean body mass up a little over 2.5 pounds. So I am damn happy with where we are. And I do see this continuing because I will be on point from here on out. In fact, I made another minor tweak to my macros this week, pulling back fats by another, this is supposed to be 85. 140 grams of protein, kept carbs at 25 total, and 85 grams of fat. So I've just bumped up protein by 5 grams, took fat down by 5 grams. So it's not a big cut calorie-wise, 25 calories, but it will shift a little bit more away from fuel and a little bit more toward functional macros. So more protein, less fat. I will continue the cardio, bumping up the cardio. My goal this week is to do 40 minutes of cardio minimum per day. Yesterday, I got started really well with a nice 60-minute walk thanks to my chat with my mama. We talked for a long time. Today, I did not do rest day. I did not do leg day. I took an extra rest, so tomorrow will be leg day. And I don't remember if last month I'd already added in all of these aura scores, but I thought it would be interesting to add a little bit more detail here to not only my sleep time, but also my time in bed, because I'm noticing, look at this, I spent like 9 hours in bed the last 2 nights. And it helps me get my overall sleep up when I'm spending more time in bed. So that means getting into bed earlier in the evening. And if I feel the need, then I stay in bed a little bit longer in the morning. But usually it's getting in bed earlier in the evening. So my sleep had come down a little bit. I had some really good, I consider a really good night, 7 hours or more. So I'm prioritizing recovery more so by making sure I get that sleep. And then I have my sleep scores, my readiness scores, and then what Aura gives me for my sleeping minimum heart rate and my sleeping HRV. Coach Mary Grace today shared with me that they also have a daytime resting heart rate. So I'm actually going to add that into here going forward and probably fill in a week or two from the past so I can look at that. I've been looking at my daily HRV, heart rate variability, my daily average in Apple Health. So I've added that in here. I may also add, I just found VO2 max on Apple Health as well. So I may add a column for that. And then I added water. So I had been tracking how much pure water I'm drinking in terms of water with electrolytes, or sparkling water, but just pure water without other beverages and without what's in my food. But Chronometer gives you a total water for the day that includes what's in your food, what's from all your other beverages. I drink a lot of coffee, some caffeinated, some decaf. So this will show me what my total water for the day is. So I want to start getting a handle on not just pure water, but also total liquid. So now I'm tracking both of those so I can keep a handle on that along with my electrolytes. So that's the main updates there with all of the body composition, macros, cardio. Let's talk health updates and other things that have been going on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Okay. Feel free to, if you want to ask any questions about data, drop any questions in the chat. All right. Let me get my other notes up here. Oh, yeah. I wanted to tell you what foods I've been eating. So things that I've shifted or changed. For a couple weeks there, I was leaning into the GAPS protocol, which gut and psychology syndrome. It's about healing your gut. You're kind of like retraining your body how to eat. I love that. And that's my go-to whenever I think something's going on. And because of all the immune system stuff that was happening, and my own history with gut health, I thought, okay, now is a great time to do a GAPS intro protocol. So I was doing a lot of broth, meats cooked in broth, fatty meats cooked in broth. Granted, once I did like a crock pot full of a chuck roast or a lamb leg with all the fat, I separated out the fat from the broth from the meat. And so then when I would do the leftovers, it would be lean meat with being able to control how much fat I put in it and how much broth. But I was doing that for a couple of weeks, mostly just that, along with some coconut yogurt, really good, clean, live cultured coconut yogurt like Coconut Cult, Cocoyo, those kinds of brands. And then doing a lot of sauerkraut or sauerkraut juice, natural fermented foods. So this past week, I shifted that away from the meats and the broths. I was so over the meats and the broths. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I went back to some of my tried and true. I bring this up because it also makes a difference when we're cutting, especially when we're shifting from higher fats to lower fats. While higher fat to protein ratio meats, especially slow cooked, the way I was doing all of those in the broth, can be great for the gut, it's less work for your body to break down. And that's part of why it's great for the gut, for digestion. But when we are striving for body composition changes, when we go to what I did this past week, started doing my lean steaks, top sirloin, top round, basically stir fried. Lots of chewing, lots of needing to break that down. My body's having to do a lot more work. And then on top of that, we have the thermic effect of food, which increases with lean meats, high protein foods. I did my turkey breakfast wraps, which I was doing my egg white wraps with deli turkey, deli chicken, bacon, or I did some uncured pepperoni with this really amazing coconut-based labneh. They actually took that off. Never mind. It was not the labneh. It was sour cream, the Coco June brand. Really good stuff. Similar to, they had a labneh that was so amazing. Labneh, however you want to pronounce it, the Mediterranean type of yogurt dip. So they switched it to a sour cream, which is still really good. A little bit lower in fat than like the mayo, because mayo is going to be a lot of fat. So I switched from Primal Kitchen mayo to the coconut sour cream, which brought the fat down overall. But that's a very lean meal. I did my smoked salmon again. I did canned salmon, like the pink wild Alaskan canned salmon from Costco. I would do that and mix it with a hard-boiled egg, some pickles, mayo, mustard on an egg life wrap. Or I would do that with some pork rinds. Ground lamb, I started doing my ground lamb bowls, and I get a pretty lean ground lamb. It's called spring lamb. I usually find that at Costco. So it's leaner than most ground lamb. I would do that with some coconut yogurt. So I'm doing higher protein, obviously lower fat meals, but dense meals. So it takes more work for my body to break them down. So I'm actually expending energy, eating more so than I was with the broths and the meats cooked in the broths. I still have my keto coffee every day with my MCT oil and my nut pods. But one other big shift I made this week, and this was doctor's orders, which I'll get to in a moment. I removed all of my protein powder supplements. And I actually removed all supplements. So all of the capsules, all of the liquid tinctures, every single supplement except my electrolytes. The only thing I kept in was my electrolytes. And that's the reason why I actually took out that one type of electrolyte I was taking, which is the 310 Nutrition brand with the higher potassium, or closer to 1-to-1 potassium to sodium, because that one has B vitamins and it does not have magnesium. So I had to take out all of the other vitamins and minerals based on what my doctor wanted me to do. But I did keep in my basic electrolytes. So I shifted more to salty and LMNT, which is, and salt of the earth, which are all higher sodium, lower potassium, and magnesium without the B vitamins. So all that to say, I took out all of my little protein treats I would make. So I would do coconut yogurt mixed with protein powder. Sometimes I would put protein powder in my coffee. I would do my egg life wraps with the coconut yogurt and the protein powder. So all of my protein powder treats came out. I actually made protein sparing pumpkin bread this week without any protein powder, which normally I would use the beef isolate flavored protein powders. I just did egg whites and pumpkin and spices and flavorings and sweetener, which was just liquid stevia and some powdered stevia. So everything I ate was real whole foods, like even the PSMF bread, because it's a solid, like dense piece of something you have to bite and chew and break down. I think that makes a difference as well. And I've noticed that also in my preps. It's usually not until peak week where I will take out powdered supplements. That's also to say, I even took out my L-glutamine and my creatine. So all of my powdered supplements came out as well. No collagen. I wasn't adding any supplements whatsoever. And so I think that may have made a difference as well. So let me tell you about why I did that. So health stuff going on. Last month, I did mention that I was doing a consult with Hone Health for potentially starting back up with testosterone replacement therapy. I shared on that one that I had some reaction after taking the testosterone cream for literally 2 or 3 days, and then I discontinued it because I was feeling inflammation, and I thought it might have been the carrier oil that they use in the cream. I don't know to this day if that was what it was or if it was just catching whatever virus I think I had, because it could have just been the virus in my body, because that was one of the recurring symptoms that I had, was overall like muscle inflammation, that kind of pain in your muscles that's not the same as soreness from training. So I was experiencing that was one of my recurring symptoms. Ear pain, like feeling like an ear infection, really swollen lymph nodes, and headaches. And a little bit of like a scratchy throat, but no cough, no sneezing, no sinus pressure or anything like that. Mainly those were my symptoms. So I did finally go to the doctor, and she said it sounded like mono. So she tested me for the active form of the mono, of the Epstein-Barr virus, which would be the mono, and the antibodies for Epstein-Barr. There's 3 different tests that they do. So it did come back that I have the Epstein-Barr antibodies, but not the active form. So it's possible that I did have an active form of it, maybe when I first got sick at the end of July or early August, and then I no longer had those in my system, but I still had the antibodies. That could have been the thing that was underlying and what was going on. And maybe I'm getting over the active form now, and so that's why I'm feeling better. And now, just yesterday and today, I have no swollen lymph nodes. The ear pain has significantly diminished. The headaches are going away, and my muscles feel so much better. So all of that seems to finally be dissipating. The other thing she thought it might have been was seasonal allergies. So we did an allergy panel. All that came back on that was dust mites and this like German cockroach, interestingly enough. But no, I don't have any of the seasonal allergies, like any of the ragweed or any of the, nature, environmental kind of things. But when she ran that blood work, my creatinine was high and my eGFR was low. So she's all concerned about my kidneys now, which I'm not concerned about at all. My numbers have always looked fantastic until that one set of blood work she ran, which was in the middle of the day. And it was pretty much, I can guarantee, directly after I had my breakfast, which was like half a pound of lamb with my protein powder, yogurt wrap with creatine. And I had just taken my double dose of creatine and my first bottle of water in the day. So I think it was just the dosages of creatine having just hit my bloodstream, along with the first meal of the day and all that protein literally being processed at that moment. She said, no, that's not what she thinks it is. So she's all concerned. By all means, we're running more blood work on Wednesday. I'm going in to get the blood draw. So she said, take all supplements out. She's pretty anti-supplement, by the way. Had a lot to say about supplements and how the dosages, we don't know the dosages, and we can't trust the manufacturers. And granted, she has to go by what she sees, and she sees people who have toxicity from taking too much supplementation, certain types of vitamins. She actually mentioned B6 specifically, which is part of why I took out those B vitamins, the electrolyte with the B vitamins in particular, and my multivitamin, which had a pretty high dosage of B12 in it. So I am now off every single supplement. It's crazy. I don't remember the last time I didn't take a single supplement, including D3, K2, including my glutamine, including my multivitamin. So I'm actually very curious to see where my blood work will show baseline. I may actually order a few additional labs beyond what she's ordered, because she just ordered the basic CBC, CMP. I don't remember what else in addition to that. But I'm kind of curious to see, okay, what are my B12 levels when I'm not supplementing? What is my D level when I'm not supplementing? So anything she didn't order, I may order myself. Also, the first company that I worked with for hormone replacement that I did end up using their testosterone cream and then stopped it was Joy Women's Wellness. They actually sent in my requisition for my follow-up labs with them. And so I may go ahead and use that one to get some hormones run now that I have been off all my supplements as well, because I was taking some supplements that I thought had improved my testosterone, which I don't think I shared last month. So let me just tell you that when I did get the blood work with Hone Health, all of my blood work looked better than ever. literally every marker, including all of my sex hormones, including my testosterone. It had gone up. And I thought that it may have been because some of the supplements I had just put in, including a homeopathic tincture of testosterone. So now I'm off all of that. So I'd really be curious to see. So I'll probably get all of that blood work run on both of those requisitions and possibly even a little bit more to get some micronutrient testing done. And of course, I will share with y'all what comes out of that. Okay, so in addition to that, I believe I shared last month about my gynecological issues. A couple of ruptured cysts this year, which were excruciatingly painful, and now more frequent because I hadn't had that happen in over 10 years, and now 2 of them in the same year. And on top of that, the ER visit showed fibroid. And I've never been diagnosed with endometriosis, but I've had painful periods for the last 30 years of my life since I got my period when I was 11 years old. So I decided to go back to push to get in to see my gynecologist. I did get in on a cancellation. I did actually get to see the doctor this time. And she said, well, you know, unless we do go in laparoscopically, you know, surgically, we're not really going to be able to officially diagnose, but we can suspect, based on everything that I've shared with her, that I do have some extent of endometriosis. So I'm scheduled now for a transvaginal ultrasound and a kidney ultrasound based on what my PCP wants me to do. I was able to get in at the end of this month, so I have to wait until the end of this month for the ultrasounds. And then I'll have my follow-up blood work, and we will see what happens with all of that. I will note also that my GYN did push for me to get on birth control. She's not a fan of taking painkillers, and she doesn't want to go in and remove my parts and give me a hysterectomy. So unless they see more on this ultrasound, which I don't know if they will, of like a much more severe form of endometriosis or anything else more severe, she's probably not going to want to go in and surgically do anything about it. I have found some specialists in my area, so I will request a second opinion. You know, I'm debating now whether or not I want to go the route of hormonal birth control. It's been over 12 years since I got off of it. I don't know if I really want to go that route. So I'm weighing the pros and cons of that. Y'all let me know your experience being on birth control, coming off of it, if you've had any of these cysts, fibroids, endometriosis, if, you know, what your experience has been. I'm just kind of out there gathering information. I know when I first got off the birth control, it was when I had first changed my lifestyle, my diet, my fitness. I was changing everything, and I was hell-bent on being 100% natural on everything. So I had gotten off all of my pharmaceuticals. I don't think I was taking any supplements yet at the time. And it was just all about food for healing, diet for healing, lifestyle for healing. And I was also staunch in my faith at the time. I'm Catholic, and I had gotten really deep into the Catholic faith at the time. And I was just like, no, very anti-birth control at the time. Now I'm a little more open to it if it will help with my quality of life until I get to the point where I can go on bioidentical hormone replacement. I'm really not there yet for that. So you all let me know your thoughts, and I'd be happy to get as much information about your experiences to help me make my decision as possible. I'm also diving into the science on it as well, to really truly understand the risks. The risk versus the benefits. So that's where I'm at with all of that. Still waiting on some answers. Don't have any real definitive answers, but just glad to be feeling better and hope that it continues. I've also gone down the rabbit hole of learning more about Epstein-Barr virus and its connection to autoimmune and a lot of other things. And it's overwhelming. But I'm keeping some stuff in my back pocket for considerations of how to manage and try to keep it at bay and keep it from reactivating if that is what has driven some of these symptoms. Okay, so let's just talk about the plan moving forward. I'm almost at an hour here. My plan moving forward, I have one more confession to make about this prep. And if you've seen or followed my past preps, then this will become apparent to you. I have not been doing weekly check-ins. Even last year when I did self-coach, I was pretty consistent with my check-ins. I might skip a week here and there, but at least every other week I was getting my check-ins done. I think I've done one check-in, maybe two, over this last 11 weeks on prep. So I think that also has played in big time to the slow progress that I've made, because let's be real, one of the reasons why in the Keto Bikini Academy and with my private clients, I require weekly check-ins, it's more for the consistency than anything else. Because if you have to show up week after week and you know that no matter what, it's a non-negotiable, that you will be getting in that bikini and taking those photos and videos and doing my posing and all of that, it is a different level of commitment and follow through. So I'm making a commitment to you. You all are my coach. My accountability is to you as well as to myself going forward. We are 11 weeks out to my competitive date. 3 weeks out to the fashion show. Ain't no more half stepping. So weekly check-ins from here on out. The photos are happening. I'll be posting them on my Instagram. I will be adding them to my check-ins, to my updates going forward. And now I am committing, I've been saying this every month, that I will commit to doing these videos more frequently. I'm going to keep the live chat videos about my prep updates to about once a month, at least until we get closer, and then I might do a special one for peak week and show week. But for now, I'll keep them every 4 weeks or so. But I will give you a additional video at least every other week going forward. I may not be able to commit to doing content weekly on this, but I will commit to my check-ins weekly. And when I do my updates, my pre-recorded updates, I'll be able to add in those photos like I did last year, so you can actually see the progress as I'm making it. And I commit to posting those weekly on Instagram, so you can be my accountability partners and my coach. All right, so regular weekly check-ins from here on out, posing along with those check-ins. So I'll be doing posing practice minimum once a week, probably more often now that we have the fashion show coming up, and I want to put together a special little routine for that. Back to 4 days of training consistently now that I'm well, and I was able to do that last week. And so I'm committing to doing that consistently again. And then, as I mentioned, we've already stepped it up with the cardio. I'm going to continue with consistency, frequency, and intensity of my cardio. And then, like I said, I pulled back just slightly on my fat macro, bumped up protein just slightly. So tiny change with macros. And then from here on out, the next 3 weeks is going to be all of the nitty-gritty details over traveling to Vegas, the fashion show, photo shoot, and the retreat with my ladies out in Vegas. And then when we get back from that, I will likely be doing a refeed or a free meal, maybe while we're in Vegas, probably while we're in Vegas. And then when I get back, it's go hard for Mexico. I think I'll be 8 weeks out to Mexico when we get back. And so it's going to be all full steam ahead, all gas, no brakes. All right, ladies, that's all I got for y'all tonight. I'm wrapping it up at 59 minutes, just under an hour. Did I miss anything? Was there anything else you all wanted to hear about prep-wise? I covered everything in my notes. Foods, water, electrolytes, digestion, training, cardio, sleep. Cycle phase, I'll just mention this past week, was my ovulatory to early luteal phase. So I am now day 21, I believe, 20 or 21. So I'm entering that late luteal phase, and then it'll be cycle time again. If I decide to start hormonal birth control, because my doctor did give me a sample pack, then I may skip my bleed this month. Haven't decided yet if I'm going to go that route, but that's where we're at. So I'm sure luteal phase may throw a wrench in some things. It may drive my hunger up. It may drive my energy and my performance in the gym down. I'm getting ahead of that mentally to prepare myself so that I don't slack off. And then I have some systems in place and plans in place to manage through that. I've got a whole stock of sparkling flavored waters that are one of my go-tos when I start getting hungry. The hunger hasn't been super strong lately. I showed y'all that one day that my macros were through the roof, and that was the second day of my cycle. And that day, I think I remember being like starving. So I will prepare myself with everything I can. Protein bread, egg white bread, sparkling water, electrolyte hot chocolates, and things of that nature. So I'll keep y'all posted on that. And with that, that's all I have. I don't see any new questions. I will see you all on the interwebs in the meantime. And then next week, we'll be back with a live masterclass. I haven't done a live masterclass in a little while. I've decided that if you saw last week, I dropped a whole series of 4 videos that were my training series that I actually recorded live a couple of years ago and never made them public on my YouTube. So I have a bunch of those old masterclasses that never went public that are still unlisted. So what I've decided is going forward, I will do 1 live masterclass per month. So it'll be a monthly masterclass rather than a live masterclass every week. I will do a prep update live chat once a month. I will do my Q&A, my monthly Q&A live once a month. And then the other 1 to 2 weeks of each month, depending on a 4-week or a 5-week month, I will release a previously recorded hidden masterclass to make it public on my YouTube. There are a lot of topics I want to put out and make them public that currently you can't find on my channel. Like the self-sabotage masterclass, I realized that I never made public. So there are a lot of good ones out there. So that's my plan going forward. There will still be basically 3 times a month that I'll be popping up live, and you can join me on the chat live. And then whenever I release an old masterclass, that will be a premiere. So it'll be the first time it airs on a Monday. So we'll keep our Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And you'll be able to join the live chat for that. It's just not going to be actually happening live because it already happened. So that's what you can expect here on this channel moving forward, along with some pre-recorded prep updates. And then I'll definitely do a recap of the fashion show after that happens, to share all the fun stuff and pop in some video and photos and all kinds of fun things I can share with you from that and the retreat. So I'm super excited. Lots of fun stuff happening. We're still early in our new program for the fall, our Autumn Iron program. We're only in week 2. So if you want to join us for that, you can still dive in. All you have to do is join the academy. You can start your membership anytime, and it's a rolling membership. So it will go from the day you sign up monthly or every 3 months or every 6 months, depending on what you choose. You can get all that details in the description below. That's all I got for you tonight. Thanks for being on with me. Love y'all. Drop any other questions if you think of questions later, or comments in the comments after this video if you're seeing the replay. Let me know if you watched the replay and if you have any thoughts or questions or things you want to share from this update, or any requests for future topics. And for my academy ladies, I will see y'all in the forums. Peace.